The city was quiet that night. The streets were empty, and the neon lights flickered above closed shops. A man walked slowly down the alley, his hands in his pockets, his head heavy with tired thoughts. His name was Daniel. He worked long hours in a small workshop, fixing old machines that no one else cared about. Life had become routine, lonely, and gray. But that night was different. Daniel stopped when he heard a faint sound. It was not the usual hum of the city. It was softer, like scratching metal or weak claws on stone. At first, he thought it was a stray cat. He turned his head and looked toward the back of an old diner. The sound came again, scratching, then a low whimper. Curiosity pulled him closer. He moved slowly, his boots echoing in the alley. Behind the diner, near the trash bins, something shifted. In the shadow, he saw a figure, small, thin, and shaking. Daniel's breath caught. It was not a cat. It was not even human. The figure crouched low, almost hiding. She had long arms, her skin pale with a strange, faint glow. Her eyes, large, round, and bright like two pieces of glass, watched him with fear. Her clothes were torn, dirty, and too big for her small body. She looked fragile, like she could break if the wind blew too hard. Daniel froze. He had never seen an alien before, not this close. The news spoke of them, visitors from far planets, powerful, untouchable. But this one was different. She was no soldier, no leader. She was just lost. The alien girl pulled herself tighter against the wall. Her thin hands shook as she tried to hide a piece of bread she had stolen from the trash. She looked hungry, starving. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He saw her ribs pressing against her skin. She was weak, trembling like she might fall any moment. For a moment, silence filled the alley. The man and the alien just stared at each other, his human eyes locked. With her strange glowing ones, fear, mistrust, and something else, desperation, passed between them. Daniel did something unexpected. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a sandwich wrapped in paper. It was his dinner, the only meal he had carried home. Slowly, without speaking, he placed it on the ground and pushed it toward her. The girl did not move. She kept staring at him, suspicious, afraid it was a trick. Her chest rose and fell quickly, like a cornered animal. Daniel stepped back, giving her space. At last, she crawled forward, her movements clumsy and slow. She snatched the sandwich and tore it open with shaking hands. The smell of food filled the air. Without waiting, she ate. Her bites were messy, desperate. She devoured it as if it was the first real food she had tasted in weeks. Daniel watched quietly. Something inside him stirred, something he had not felt in a long time. Pity, kindness, maybe even responsibility. The girl coughed from eating too fast. Daniel crouched and handed her his water bottle. She flinched at the movement, but took it. Her lips touched the bottle and she drank deeply, spilling some down her chin. When she finished, she looked at him again. Her eyes softened just a little. Not trust, no, not yet, but less fear. Her voice was faint, broken. Just one word escaped. Why? Daniel swallowed. He didn't have an answer. Why was he helping her? Why risk himself for a stranger, for an alien? He only shook his head and whispered back, "You looked hungry." The girl blinked slowly. She held the empty wrapper in her hands like it was treasure. Then her body sagged against the wall. Her eyes closed, her breathing shallow. Exhaustion claimed her. Daniel looked around. If anyone else found her, it would not end well. She would be taken, locked, maybe worse. He knew the city was not kind to outsiders, even human ones. His thoughts raked. He should walk away, pretend he never saw her, go home, forget. But his feet did not move. Instead, he pulled off his jacket and gently placed it over her shoulders. Her small frame almost disappeared under it. She stirred, but did not wake. Daniel sighed. He knew he was crossing a line. This was not his problem. Yet something in his chest refused to leave her there. He whispered to himself, "Just tonight. She can rest tonight." He lifted her carefully. She was lighter than expected, almost weightless. He carried her out of the alley, his heart beating fast. As he walked back to his apartment, he glanced over his shoulder again and again, afraid someone had seen. The night air was colder now, and the city lights felt sharper. Daniel knew one thing. His quiet, lonely life had just changed forever. And deep in his mind, a question burned. Who was she running from? Why was she here, starving and alone? And what would happen when they came looking for her? The answers would come soon. But for now, the story had only just begun. Daniel's apartment was small, quiet, and filled with the smell of oil and dust. Old machines sat on the shelves, half fixed, half broken, like forgotten soldiers. The walls were plain, the furniture worn. It was not a home built for guests, and Daniel had not shared it with anyone in years. Now for the first time, he carried someone inside. The alien girl was still asleep in his arms, her head resting weakly against his shoulder. He placed her carefully on the small couch by the wall. His jacket slid off her, and for a moment Daniel saw how fragile she truly was. Her skin, faintly glowing, was marked with scratches. Her breathing was uneven but calmer than before. Daniel stood back, uneasy. His heart pounded. What had he done? Bringing an alien into his home was dangerous. If anyone discovered her here, he could lose everything, his job, his freedom, maybe even his life. Yet as he looked at her, curled up like a child, he knew he couldn't leave her outside. He poured himself a glass of water and sighed. At the table, watching her from across the room, questions filled his mind. Who was she? Why was she hiding? Why had she looked so afraid? Hours passed. The clock ticked softly. Finally, the girl stirred. Her eyes opened, glowing faintly in the dim light. She looked around, confused, then sat up quickly, her body tense. "You're safe," Daniel said quietly. She stared at him, her eyes sharp, ready to run. "You fainted," he explained, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "I carried you here. You were starving." The girl's lips trembled. She pulled the jacket tight around herself, as if hiding. Her voice came, soft and broken. "Why? Help me?" Daniel hesitated. He didn't know the answer himself. "Because no one else would," he said at last. Her gaze lowered to the floor. For a long time she said nothing. Then she whispered, "Danger, if they find me." "Who?" Daniel asked. She shook her head, refusing to speak more. Her small hands clenched the fabric of his jacket. Her shoulders shook. Daniel stood, walked to the kitchen, and returned with bread and a bowl of warm soup. He placed it on the table. "Eat. We can talk after." She stared at the food, uncertain, then slowly approached. She ate carefully this time, not desperate like before, but still with hunger that came from deep inside. Daniel sat across from her, silent, giving her space. When she finished, she looked around the room. Her glowing eyes landed on a picture frame resting on the shelf. It was a photo of Daniel with his wife and young son, taken years ago. The girl tilted her head. "Your family?" Daniel's chest tightened. His throat felt dry. "Not anymore," he muttered. She said nothing more but looked at him differently now, not just as a stranger, but as someone who had known loss. The silence grew heavy. Finally, Daniel asked, "What's your name?" The girl hesitated, then whispered something soft, almost musical. It was a sound he had never heard before. Seeing his confusion, she tried again, shaping the words slowly. "Lyra." Daniel repeated it. "Lyra." She nodded once. For the first time, a hint of trust flickered in her eyes. That night, Daniel gave her a blanket and let her rest on the couch. He sat awake in the chair, thinking. Outside, the city moved on as if nothing had changed, but inside, Daniel knew everything had. Just before dawn, he heard her voice again, barely above a whisper, carried in the still air. "They will come." Daniel's head turned. Lyra was awake, staring at the ceiling with wide eyes. Her voice shook. "They always come. They find me." Daniel's stomach knotted. "Who?" he pressed. She turned her glowing eyes toward him. Her face was pale, her lips tight, and then, with words heavy as stone, she whispered, "My own people." The room went cold. Daniel felt the weight of her words. She was not hiding from humans. She was running from her own kind. Before he could ask more, Lyra sat up, trembling. She clutched her hands together as if protecting something invisible. "They don't forgive. They don't stop. If they know I am here." Her voice broke and she buried her face in her hands. Daniel leaned forward. "Lyra, why? Why are they after you?" She shook her head violently. "No, not now. Too dangerous." Her fear was real. Daniel could see it in every part of her body. Whatever truth she carried, it was heavy enough to crush her. And now, by helping her, he had stepped into that same shadow. A sound outside interrupted his thoughts, the sharp screech of tires. Daniel stood and moved to the window. A black car had parked down the street. Men in dark coats stepped out, scanning the buildings. His heart pounded. Lyra's voice came behind him, small and filled with dread. "They found me." Daniel turned, his face pale. In that moment, he understood. His quiet life was over. He had taken a step into a storm far greater than he imagined, and there was no turning back. The black car stayed out. It sighed for a long time. Daniel kept the lights off and pulled the curtain only a little to peek. Two men stood on the sidewalk, dark coats brushing against the cold wind. They looked like ordinary humans, but their movements were too sharp, too controlled. They were not ordinary. Daniel's heart raced. If they knocked, what would he do? He turned to the couch. Lyra sat frozen, her eyes wide, her hands gripping the blanket tightly. She shook her head slowly, whispering, "Not safe. Not safe." But after a few minutes, the men climbed back into the car. The engine roared, and the vehicle rolled away, disappearing into the night. Daniel let out the breath he didn't realize he was holding. "They'll come back," Lyra said, her voice flat. Daniel sat across from her. He wanted to ask 100 questions, but the way she hugged the blanket told him she wasn't ready. Instead, he spoke gently. "You should rest." She shook her head, her glowing eyes fixed on him. "Why risk your life? You don't know me." Daniel looked down at his hands. He didn't know why, not fully, but he remembered the picture on his shelf, his wife, his little boy, both gone in a car crash years ago. The silence of his home had nearly broken him. "You look like you had no one," he said finally. "I know how that feels." Lyra's lips parted as if to answer, but no words came. She only lowered her gaze. Morning came gray and silent. Daniel made coffee and bread, the smell filling the small room. Lyra sat at the table, watching him. She had wrapped herself tightly in his jacket like it was armor. He placed the bread before her. "Try this." She studied it with suspicion. Then she bit into it slowly, chewing with care. Her eyes widened. "Warm," she whispered, almost surprised. Daniel smiled faintly. "That's how it's supposed to be." A strange moment passed. The silence was softer now, less heavy. Later, Daniel pulled out an old radio from the shelf. It had been broken for months, but he liked to tinker. He sat on the floor, tools spread around him. Lyra moved closer, watching. With quiet curiosity, he touched two wires together and the radio crackled. Lyra's eyes lit up. "What is that?" "Music," Daniel said, adjusting the dial. A soft tune filled the room, rough with static but still alive. Lyra leaned closer, her glowing eyes wide. The sound seemed to wrap around her like magic. Slowly she tilted her head and began to hum, her voice high and strange, yet beautiful. Daniel looked at her in surprise. Her hum blended with the broken song, turning it into something haunting, something otherworldly. When the tune ended, silence filled the room again, but it wasn't the same silence as before. "You've never heard music?" Daniel asked softly. She shook her head. "In my world, only orders, only commands." Her voice cracked as if the words carried too much pain. Daniel's chest tightened. This girl had grown up with nothing but fear. That night, the rain fell heavy on the city. Drops tapped against the window, steady and endless. Daniel sat at the table, fixing another machine. Lyra sat nearby, wrapped in the blanket, her eyes half closed. She spoke suddenly. "I had a brother." Daniel looked up. "Small," she continued, "always laughed. They took him." Her voice broke. "Gone." Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to ask what she meant, but her shaking hands told him enough. He placed the tool down and spoke gently. "I had a son." Her glowing eyes lifted to his face. "He loved building things," Daniel said, his voice low. "Planes, cars, anything with wheels. He wanted to fly one day." His hands trembled as he spoke, but he forced the words out. "He's gone too." Lyra stared at him, her eyes shimmering. Two strangers, two different worlds, yet bound by the same wound, loss. For a long time, they just sat in the rain-soaked silence. No more questions, just the heavy truth between them. But the fragile peace did not last. Late that night, Daniel went to the window again. His stomach dropped. A different car this time, silver, not black, slowly rolled past the street. Its windows were tinted. The light scanned each doorway as if searching. Lyra sensed it too. She moved closer, her voice sharp. "They are near." Daniel clenched his fists. "Then we'll be ready." She shook her head violently. "No fight. They are stronger, always stronger." "Then why are they afraid of you?" Daniel asked suddenly. Lyra froze. Her lips pressed shut. She looked at the floor, trembling. Daniel stepped closer. "What are you hiding, Lyra? Why would your own people hunt you across worlds?" She whispered only one sentence, so soft it barely reached him. "Because I took what they fear most." Her glowing eyes met his, filled with both terror and determination. Daniel's chest tightened. He didn't understand yet, but he knew one thing. This bond between them, this fragile thread of trust, was pulling him deeper into a storm. And soon, that storm would break. The silver car did not return that night, but Daniel could not sleep. He sat in the chair near the door, listening to every sound outside. The city never truly slept. Pipes groaned, tires screeched, and footsteps echoed in the distance. But every noise made him wonder, are they here? Lyra slept uneasily on the couch, clutching the blanket like a shield. Her glowing eyes sometimes flickered open, scanning the room, before closing again. Even in her sleep, she was ready to run. When morning came, the streets outside were wet from rain. Daniel made coffee, the smell filling the room, but his hands shook as he poured it. He knew the hunters would not stop. They had found her trail. It was only a matter of time before they knocked on his door. It happened faster than he thought. By afternoon, heavy knocks pounded on the door, 3 sharp raps, then silence. Daniel froze. His eyes darted to Lyra. She sat up instantly, fear flooding her face. She shook her head violently, mouthing, "Don't answer." The knocks came again, harder this time. A man's voice called out, "Delivery!" Daniel's blood ran cold. He hadn't ordered anything. He motioned for Lyra to stay silent. Slowly, he moved to the door, pressing his ear against the wood. Outside, he heard faint whispers. Too many feet shifting. Too much silence between words. Whoever they weren't delivering packages. The doorknob rattled. Daniel's heart raced. They were trying the lock. He turned quickly. "We have to go." Lyra's eyes widened. "Where?" "Anywhere but here," he hissed. They slipped out the back window into the narrow alley. The air was damp and trash cans lined the walls. Daniel's boots splashed in puddles as he pulled Lyra along. She moved quickly, but her steps were light, almost soundless, as if she had learned to run in silence. Behind them, the front door burst open. Voices shouted. Heavy boots stormed inside Daniel's apartment. "They're gone!" one barked. The alley echoed with the hunters' footsteps as they poured out the back door. Daniel and Lyra ran. The chase twisted through the city. They darted between markets, pushing past crowds. People shouted, angry at being shoved aside, but Daniel didn't look back. He only heard the sharp rhythm of boots following. Lyra's hand was cold in his, her glowing eyes flicking around, searching for escape. "Left," she whispered. Daniel trusted her instinct. They cut down a side street, weaving through laundry lines and stacked crates. A dog barked wildly as they passed, but the hunters were trained. Their footsteps did not fade. They moved like shadows, steady and relentless. Daniel's lungs burned. He had not run like this in years, but Lyra's grip pulled him forward, keeping him from slowing down. They ducked into an abandoned subway station. The old sign above was cracked, letters faded, rust covered the gates. Daniel shoved the gate open, and they rushed inside. The air smelled of dust and mold. Darkness swallowed the tunnels, broken only by the faint flicker of dead lights. Their footsteps echoed on the concrete. Daniel pressed his back against the wall, breathing hard. Lyra stood still, her glowing eyes searching the shadows. "Did we lose them?" Daniel asked, voice low. She shook her head slowly. "No, they never stop." A sound echoed down the tunnel, boots on metal. Daniel clenched his fists. He looked at Lyra. "You said they're stronger, so why chase you like this? What are you hiding?" Her lips trembled. She hesitated, then whispered, "Something they cannot control." Before Daniel could ask more, a beam of light cut through the darkness. A flashlight. Voices followed, shouting commands in a language Daniel didn't understand. "Run!" Lyra cried. They bolted deeper into the tunnels. Water dripped from the ceiling, splashing on their faces. The ground grew uneven, littered with broken glass and old wires. The hunters' flashlights danced on the walls behind them, closing in. Daniel's legs screamed for rest, but fear drove him on. Lyra moved ahead, lighter, faster. She turned corners with strange precision, as if her memory guided her. At last they reached a service door. Daniel shoved it, but it was locked. "No!" he gasped. Lyra stepped forward. She pressed her glowing hand against the lock. Sparks flickered. The metal sizzled, then snapped open. Daniel stared, stunned. "How?" "Later," she hissed, pulling him through. They burst into another tunnel, this one leading upward. At the end was a rusted stairwell. Daylight streamed faintly through the cracks above. Freedom. But the hunters were faster than Daniel expected. One leapt from the shadows, blocking the stairwell. His face was pale, his eyes dark, his movements too perfect to be human. Daniel froze. The hunter's voice was cold. "Give her to us." Lyra clutched Daniel's arm. "Don't." The hunter stepped closer. "She stole what belongs to us. She is dangerous." Daniel's breath shook. He looked at Lyra. Her eyes glowed brighter now, filled with fear, but also something stronger. Defiance. "Dangerous?" Daniel growled. "She's just a girl." The hunter's lip curled. "You don't understand, she carries the seed." The words meant nothing to Daniel, but the way Lyra stiffened told him everything. Her secret was real. Before the hunter could strike, Lyra raised her hand. A pulse of light exploded from her palm, slamming into him. The hunter flew back, crashing against the wall with a sickening thud. Daniel's jaw dropped. The stairwell shook from the blast. Lyra swayed, her strength drained. "We have to move." Daniel caught her before she fell. He didn't ask questions. He didn't need answers yet. All he knew was clear. He had stepped into a fight far bigger than himself, and there was no going back. The stairwell door slammed shut behind them. Daniel and Lyra climbed fast, their feet pounding the rusted steps. Sunlight leaked through cracks at the top, the first sign of open air. They burst out into the daylight, stumbling into an abandoned lot filled with weeds and broken concrete. Daniel pulled Lyra behind an old shipping container, both of them gasping for air. His lungs burned, his legs trembled. Lyra leaned against the metal wall, pale and shaking, her glowing eyes dimmer than before. Daniel stared at her, his mind racing. He had seen it with his own eyes, the blast of light from her hand, the hunter flying across the tunnel. That was no trick, it was power. He finally spoke, his voice low, rough from running. "What did he mean? The seed? What are you hiding, Lyra?" Her eyes closed for a moment, as if she wanted to escape the question. Then she whispered, "If I tell you, you will leave me." Daniel frowned. "You don't know that." "You will," she said, her voice trembling. "Everyone does." Daniel shook his head firmly. "Then make me understand. I can't help you if I don't know the truth." "Litre." Russ sank to the ground, hugging her knees. She stayed silent for a long time, the only sound their heavy breathing and the distant hum of city traffic. Finally, she lifted her head, her glowing eyes meeting his. "My people rule with fear," she began slowly. "They have weapons, armies, endless machines. They control every voice, every thought. No one dares fight them." Daniel listened, his fists tight. He thought of governments, wars, oppression. He understood too well what she meant. Lyra continued, "But there is one thing they fear, something even their power cannot fully command. It is old, older than them, a spark from the beginning of our world. We call it the seed." Her hands trembled as she spoke. "The seed can create life, or destroy it. It chooses who may carry it. No one can force it, no one can steal it, and it chose me." Daniel's chest tightened. "Chose you? Why?" Her lips pressed together. "I don't know, I never asked for it. I only know it woke inside me one night, and when they discovered, they came. My family was taken. My brother—" Her voice broke, and she covered her face with shaking hands. "They said he would be returned if I surrendered, but it was a lie." Daniel's jaw clenched. The pain in her voice was raw, real. She looked at him again, tears shining faintly in her glowing eyes. "I ran. I crossed stars. I thought Earth was far enough. But they always follow." Daniel sat beside her, silent for a long moment. He wanted to ask more, but the truth already weighed heavy. She wasn't just a runaway. She wasn't just a starving alien girl. She carried something that could shake her entire people. And now, by helping her, he was caught in the middle. The wind rustled the weeds around them. Daniel finally said, "You think I'll leave you because of this?" Her voice was small. "Wouldn't you? I'm dangerous. If they know you protect me, you'll die to..." Daniel shook his head. "Listen, Lyra, I've already lost everything that mattered once. I won't walk away now. If you carry something they fear, then maybe it's not just your fight. Maybe it's bigger than you, bigger than me." Her eyes widened. She stared at him, searching for a lie, but Daniel's voice was steady, his gaze firm. For the first time, a fragile hope flickered across her face. They didn't have long to rest. A sharp sound cut the air, a distant drone, mechanical wings buzzing. Daniel peeked out from behind the container. A black drone floated above the street, scanning with red beams. "They're sweeping the city," he muttered. Lyra's voice turned urgent. "If they find us in open ground, we're finished." Daniel grabbed her hand. "Then we move." They hurried through narrow alleys, weaving between old factories and broken fences. The drone buzz grew louder behind them, forcing them to duck into shadows. Daniel's heart pounded with every step. At last, they reached an old warehouse, its windows shattered, doors half-hanging. Inside, dust filled the air and rusted machines sat like sleeping giants. Daniel guided her into the shadows. "We'll hide here for now." Lyra sat against the wall, her body trembling with exhaustion. She looked at him with wide eyes. "You still don't understand, Daniel. They will not stop. Not until they have me." Daniel crouched in front of her. "Then we'll give them a reason to regret chasing you." Her lips parted in surprise. "You'd fight for me?" For something not even of your world? Daniel's voice hardened. I've seen what fear does. I won't let them crush you. Not while I'm alive. Her eyes glowed brighter at his words. Something inside her shifted, a spark of strength returning. But their fragile moment broke when a crash echoed from outside. The warehouse doors groaned, shadows moved. They were not alone. Hunters entered, their eyes dark, their steps in perfect rhythm. Daniel's stomach turned to ice. He glanced at Lyra. She pressed her hand against the floor, her glow pulsing faintly. The air around them seemed to hum, alive with hidden energy. She whispered one word, filled with both fear and resolve. Stand with me. Daniel stood, his fists clenched, his heart pounded. He knew nothing about seeds, alien powers, or wars among the stars. But he knew one thing. He would not abandon her. Not now, not ever. The warehouse was silent for only a breath. Then the hunters stepped inside. Their boots clicked against the concrete, steady and cold. Shadows stretched across the floor as their flashlights swept the room. Daniel pressed his back against the wall, his fists clenched so tight they shook. He had no weapons, no training. Against these creatures, he was nothing but flesh and fear. But Lyra stood beside him, her glowing eyes fixed forward, her small hand pressed to the ground. The hum grew stronger. The dust on the floor shifted, as if something unseen moved beneath it. The hunters stopped. Their leader, tall with pale skin and black eyes, spoke in a voice that carried like steel. Lyra, the seed does not belong to you. Come quietly, and your end will be merciful. Lyra's voice was sharp, trembling, but strong. No, I will never serve you. The hunter's lips curled in something close to a smile. Then you will die with your pet human. Daniel's blood boiled at the words. He stepped forward, placing himself between Lyra and the hunters. If you want her, you'll have to go through me. The leader tilted his head, almost amused. So be it. The first hunter lunged. Daniel ducked instinctively, barely avoiding a strike that cracked the wall behind him. His heart raced. He swung back, his punch connecting with the hunter's chest, but it was like hitting stone. The creature didn't even flinch. Before Daniel could move, another grabbed his arm, twisting hard. Pain shot through him. He gritted his teeth, refusing to scream. Then the air around them pulsed. A wave of light burst from Lyra's hand, slamming into the hunter holding Daniel. The creature flew backward, crashing into a rusted machine with a metallic scream. Daniel staggered free, clutching his arm. He turned to Lyra. Her glow burned brighter now, her face tense with focus. You fight, I shield, she said quickly. Daniel nodded, his fear hardening into resolve. The hunters advanced again. Daniel grabbed a broken pipe from the floor, swinging it with all his strength. The first strike landed across a hunter's head, snapping the metal pipe in half. The creature stumbled but didn't fall. Another came from the side, fast as lightning. Daniel braced himself, but before the blow landed, Lyra raised her hand. A shield of shimmering light flared into existence, the hunter's fist bouncing off it with a crack of energy. Daniel didn't waste the chance. He swung what remained of the pipe, striking the hunter's leg. This time, it buckled. The battle turned into chaos, metal clashing, light flashing, the air alive with the sound of struggle. But every burst of power drained Lyra. Daniel saw it in the way her knees trembled, the way her breaths grew shallow. Her glow flickered like a candle in the wind. One hunter noticed her weakness. It slipped past Daniel, moving straight for her. Lyra! Daniel shouted. She raised her hand, but no light came. Exhaustion had stolen her strength. The hunter loomed over her, blade-like arm raised high. Without thinking, Daniel threw himself forward. He tackled the creature, both of them crashing to the floor. The hunter snarled, its strength crushing, but Daniel clung tight, using every ounce of his will. Run! He shouted at Lyra. But Lyra did not run. Her eyes flared brighter than before. She screamed, a sound filled with raw pain and fury. The ground beneath them cracked, light seeping from the floor itself. A surge exploded outward. The hunter on top of Daniel was thrown across the room, smashing into a steel pillar. The entire warehouse shook. Daniel gasped, pulling himself up. His body ached, but he was alive. He turned to Lyra. She stood glowing like a star, her small frame trembling, her eyes burning with power she could barely control. The hunters hesitated. For the first time, they looked uncertain. The leader's voice darkened. Enough! Kill them both! The hunters charged again, but Daniel felt no fear now. He grabbed a metal chain hanging from the ceiling, swinging it like a whip. It smashed into one hunter's face, sending it reeling. Lyra unleashed another pulse, the blast throwing two hunters back into the shadows. Her power was wild, unstable, but it kept them alive. Together they fought, not as protector and protected, but side by side. Daniel's raw strength and desperation, Lyra's fragile but fierce light. Minutes stretched into an eternity. The warehouse floor was littered with broken beams and smoking debris. The hunters, though relentless, began to falter. Finally, the leader stepped forward, fury etched across his pale face. He raised his hand, dark energy forming like fire. Daniel braced himself, knowing he couldn't stop it. But Lyra stepped in front of him. Her glow expanded, wrapping around them both. The dark energy struck her shield and shattered like glass, fragments of shadow scattering into the air. The leader staggered, shock on his face. For the first time, he looked afraid. Lyra's voice cut through the silence. "Tell them this. I am not theirs, and I will not be broken." With one final surge, her light erupted, flooding the warehouse in brilliance. The hunters screamed, their bodies flung backward into the dark. When the light faded, the warehouse was silent again. The hunters were gone. Daniel dropped to his knees, gasping. His whole body shook, but a wild laugh escaped his lips. "We did it. We actually did it." Lyra collapsed beside him, her glow fading until only her eyes shimmered faintly. She looked at him weakly. "Not gone, not forever. They will return." Daniel nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. "Then we'll be ready." She blinked slowly, exhaustion pulling her down. But before sleep took her, she whispered, "You stood with me, when no one else would." Daniel looked at her, his chest heavy. He reached out and gently covered her hand with his. "And I always will." The warehouse smelled of smoke and dust. Metal beams groaned, and broken glass crunched under Daniel's boots. He leaned against a pillar, his chest rising and falling like a drum. His whole body ached from the fight. Lyra lay nearby, her glow faint but steady. Her small frame trembled with exhaustion, yet her eyes still burned with quiet strength. For a long moment they said nothing. Only the sound of dripping water echoed through the ruins. Daniel finally broke the silence. "They'll be back, won't they?" Lyra nodded weakly. "Always." Her voice carried no panic now, only certainty. She had lived with this chase too long to believe in safety. Daniel clenched his fists. "Then we can't just keep running. We need to know what they really want. We need to know what this seed means." Her eyes lifted to his, glowing softly in the dim light. "You are not afraid anymore." He gave a tired smile. "I was, still am, but fear doesn't matter if you've got something worth fighting for." Lyra blinked, her lips trembling as though the words touched a place she had hidden for years. They left the warehouse before dawn. The city streets were quiet, the air heavy with mist. Daniel led her through alleys, avoiding cameras and crowds. Every shadow felt alive. Every car engine made his stomach tighten. Finally, they reached Daniel's apartment again. The door hung broken from the hunter's earlier raid. His machines were smashed, his belongings scattered. His old life, once simple and lonely, was destroyed. Daniel stepped inside slowly. "Guess I don't live here anymore." Lyra stood in the doorway, clutching the blanket he had given her days ago. Her voice was soft. "Because of me." Daniel turned to her. "No, because I chose to help you, and I don't regret it." Her glowing eyes shimmered. For the first time, she gave him a small, fragile smile. But the fragile peace did not last. That evening, the sky darkened unnaturally. A low hum vibrated through the city, deeper than thunder. Windows shook. People ran into the streets, staring upward in fear. Daniel rushed outside with Lyra. His stomach turned cold. Above the city, the clouds split apart. Massive shapes moved in the sky, alien ships black and glimmering stretching across the horizon. Their lights pulsed like beating hearts. The people below screamed. Some pointed, others prayed. Soldiers scrambled through the streets, radios buzzing with panic. Daniel whispered, "They found you." Lyra's face was pale, but her eyes held no surprise. "Not just me. Now, all of you." The ships hovered, their presence pressing down like a storm. A voice boomed across the city, amplified by machines, speaking in a harsh alien tongue. Daniel didn't understand the words, but the tone carried one message: surrender. The ground trembled. Smaller craft broke away from the massive ships, descending toward the city. Lyra turned to Daniel, her voice urgent. "This is bigger than us now. They will not stop until the seed is theirs. They will burn everything in their way." Daniel looked at the sky, at the ships blotting out the stars. He had never felt so small, yet beside him stood Lyra, hungry, broken, hunted, but still fighting. He clenched his jaw. "Then we don't give it to them. Ever." They ran toward the city's edge, avoiding soldiers and panicked crowds. Sirens wailed, fires burned, and the night turned red with alien lights. In an abandoned rail yard, they stopped to catch their breath. Daniel looked at her. "Tell me the truth. What can this seed really do?" Lyra hesitated. Her hands shook as she spoke. "Okay. It can grow life where there is nothing, or it can unmake what already exists. In the wrong hands, it is the end of worlds." Daniel felt the weight of her words settle, like iron. "And it's inside you?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, I carry it. That is why they will never stop." Silence stretched between them. Then Daniel said firmly, "Then maybe Earth is the one place where they don't win. Maybe humanity won't bow the way your people did." Lyra stared at him, her eyes wide. "You would stand against them? Even knowing what they are?" Daniel's voice was steady. "I already did. And I'll keep standing." Above them, the alien ship shifted, their lights focusing on the city below. The invasion had begun. Lyra's glow brightened faintly, flickering like a flame in the dark. She stepped closer to Daniel, her voice soft but steady. "When I first met you, I thought you were only kind. I did not know you were also strong." Daniel gave a tired laugh. "I didn't know either." For a moment, they simply stood together, two against the storm. Then Lyra whispered words that made his breath catch. "You gave me shelter. Now I will give you a future." Her glow spread, wrapping around them both in a soft light. The ground hummed beneath their feet. Daniel looked up at the massive ships filling the sky. His fear was still there, but it no longer controlled him. Whatever came next, they would face it together. And deep inside, he knew one truth: this was only the beginning.